So cool. And there's like ice packs. I know these are ice packs, but I love them like.
Yeah, it's right here.
I'm just gonna sit in the back. I don't. Sorry. Still walking around. I don't know if my mom's gonna sit here or not, and she doesn't on speaker.
I don't know where she's going.
It sounds like it'll be good. I'm supposed to get my homework done because I kind of want to listen. Because I feel like I do want to read the book, but I feel like that's going to be really over my head. Like with all the stuff. I mean, I read one of the last books I read was, so, you know, like Duck Dynasty, you know that? It was like Phil Robertson, this whole like life stories.
I bet that was
It was really good. It was definitely an adult book and some stuff over my head, but I was like, I've already seen this and whatnot. So. It was good though. I enjoyed it. I just need to get my dad to read it. But I think he'll like it. My dad likes reading. My mom likes reading. I took after my mom, my brother took after my dad. For now. I don't get numbers. They just don't record. Like I look at them and people are like, oh yeah, that's that. I have to work. Especially now. I went to Houston did EOGs on paper pencil and the little bubbles. I read it.
So if everyone will take a seat, we'll get started in about 2 minutes.
See, Yeah, we're like, we're recording.
No, like, that was their plan, was to have like Alex out of school last week. They actually broke a crown that is needed. Yeah. I said, we can do
Good evening. So we are live streaming tonight, and it will be recorded and placed on the Ashe County Schools website. It will be posted to YouTube, and so we do have, if you missed something tonight, don't worry, it will be recorded. So first of all, thank you for such a great turnout. I'm glad that so many of you showed up in person today. I was a little worried sending out a link on social media that we wouldn't have a great turnout, but I'm really pleased with the number of you who showed up. It's my honor to welcome each of you tonight to our Anxious Generation, a community conversation on youth, technology, and mental health. I hope you enjoyed the cookies and the peanut butter bars. The peanut butter bars were personally my favorite, and the chance to visit some of the booths that were set up outside from our community partners. Those partners are here tonight because they, like each of us, are invested in the well-being of our children and our families. And that's so important for us to be together on this, because we truly care about the future and the direction of our children and our families. So thank you again for taking the time out of your evening to be here. And this means that you care about children, and you care about what goes on in our schools, but you also care about what goes on in our communities and how our children are prepared for what's next. The purpose of tonight is really simple, yet urgent. To bring our community together to talk openly about and honestly about the challenges facing young people today. And just as importantly, to share strategies and supports that will help them to thrive. From the responsible use of technology, to the rise of vaping, to the pressures of growing up, and honestly about the challenges facing young people today in every school, not just here in Ashe County, but across the country. We also know that technology is not going away. In fact, the future of work will require our students to be fluent in technology, to collaborate effectively in a digital world, and to understand how to use emerging tools like artificial intelligence or AI. But we must strike the right balance. Balance is important, helping students to prepare for technology-driven careers while avoiding the pitfalls of unhealthy scrolling, gaming, excessive screen time, and replacing meaningful work with digital distraction. It's about equipping them not only with the skills for workplace readiness, but also with the judgment and responsibility to use technology wisely. That's not just on schools, that's on all of us. So we must work together to get this done. I'll tell you a little story that I don't have written down here. Today I had the pleasure with Earl Pittington, our CTE director, to visit GE Aviation. And as we toured the facility, we were talking about a potential partnership for our students. And as we toured the facility, we're talking about hands-on skilled labor with grounded in technology. You have to be a truly skilled, knowledgeable person able to use technology to thrive in what was traditionally a CTE dirty job. And those are no longer dirty. They're very much grounded in technology and high-level critical thinking. So as I was thinking about that, and tonight, we really do have a unique responsibility ahead of us to prepare our children. The future our students are stepping into will require resiliency, adaptability, collaboration, and critical thinking. These skills are best built when our children are healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's why Ashe County Schools is committed to working hand in hand with families and community leaders like the ones that are here today, and organizations to strengthen the health, safety, and well-being of every child. Together, we can prepare them not only for the world that they live in today, but also for the future of work and the life they will inherit tomorrow. I heard someone recently say, and I just used this recently myself, we must prepare our students not for our past, but for their future, which will include technology, but it will include all of those soft skills that sometimes are waning in a digital world. So tonight you're going to hear from 4 very special people that I'm recently myself, we must prepare, who will bring unique perspectives to this discussion. Dr. Scott Sinclair is a trusted pediatrician who will share research and strategies about the impact of technology on children. Jennifer Green is the director of Appalachian Healthcare, will present some important local data and trends, and she and her team have resources available as well. Charlene Zorn, a courageous parent, who will share her personal story and the dangers of vaping. And FBI Special Agent Jared Schaefer, who will provide insights on the risks of social media and how we can help keep children safe. At the end of these presentations, I guess I could put that on there. There you go. At the end of these presentations, we will come together for a panel discussion. We will invite you to participate by submitting your questions using the QR code provided. Some of you may have scanned it coming in, but I'm going to scan it up here. If you want to pull out your phones, this would be an appropriate time to pull out your phone and submit your questions using this QR code. This is your opportunity to engage directly with our speakers and continue the conversation in a meaningful way. If you can't think of any questions, then I have some prepared for each of the speakers as well. But before I get started, if you want to take out your phones, we will have time to do that. So please scan that QR code and submit your questions there. You can submit them in as many times as you want and all throughout the presentations. I can't promise that we'll get to all of the questions. However, we will get to as many of them as we can. And once we have those answers, we will post them online alongside of our Facebook, or not our Facebook page, but our website, which will have the video as well. We are streaming again tonight's event, so families who could not attend or who may be sitting at a ball game right now can join us. And then, of course, it will be posted on our website. I hope that if you gain something from tonight, that you share with your friends, other community members, other parents, even students, the conversations that we are about to have. I want to thank each of our presenters as well as our community partners and organizations that have been so good to us, who are here tonight with resources for all of us. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you here, parents and grandparents, caregivers, educators, community leaders, or just caring people who care about children, for being here and for your commitment to our children. This year, Ashe County Schools' theme is 100%. Every moment matters. And tonight's a perfect example of that. Every conversation, every connection, every strategy shared matters when it comes to protecting and preparing our children for the future. Together we're stronger. Together we can help our children to develop these coveted skills of resilience and wellness that they need for a bright and successful future. So thank you, and let's get started. So I promised that I would share some of the things, since I have a captive audience, of some of the supports that we have in place in Ashe County Schools. And I also want to recognize a few special people in the audience. So we have Board of Education members, and I only see 2, but I cannot see very far away in my contacts. One sees far and one sees close to read. So I see Teresa Calhoun and I see Josh Roden. Are there any other board members here? We thank the board members for their support in this program. I also see 3 of our commissioners here. So Wes Green, Jerry Powers, and of course our newest commissioner, Russell Killen. Thank you for being here. Are there any other commissioners here? And I do want to thank the people that, again, are community partners, and a lot of people on my staff who made tonight possible. I see Jamie and Amy back there, Casey. Thank you, Travis Bennett, for running around and keeping me straight today and making sure this program goes smooth. But speaking of supports in place, a lot of people don't know, schools are not primary to mental health. But we see children every single day. We're here for teaching and learning, but we do have a lot of supports in place alongside of our community partners. We have a partnership with Appalachian State University for the Ask Center at Ashe County High School, where we host master's and doctoral students who actually build the pipeline for future mental health workers, but also who work with some of our toughest needs students in making it through the day-to-day in school. We have thanks to our Board of Education and a lot of the support that they provide, we have full-time nurses at each school, and that's also thankful to the partnership we have with Appalachian Health. We have 3 school social workers that service all of our children and families throughout Ashe County schools. We have clinical psychology doctoral trainees funded from VIA Health for the Not on Tobacco Cessation program with parental consent, of course. We have Tier 2 emotional regulation skills groups using dialectical behavior therapy and working specifically with freshmen at Ashe County High School. We have The Hill, a new program started at Ashe County High School to help kids who may not have any mental health needs. They just need a different placement in school in order to graduate. Thanks to Appalachian Health, we have a new behavioral specialist who, 2 of them I know are here today. So Brittany and, who's my other one? There you are. Okay, your name's eluding me because I just heard your name today. But we have 2 here at Ashe County High School tonight. But they are working across elementary, middle, and high school to serve behavioral needs of students, but to help our staff members so that they can have the skills to help students who are struggling behaviorally in classes. Western Youth Network is partnering with us to do vaping education classes with students. We have training that we've done with all employees on trauma-informed practices, and we've specifically on resilience and trauma and creating responsive, resiliency-focused schools. I know that's a mouthful, but our teachers are invested in helping students to not just get through the day, but to truly learn, and they have to be present to do that. Our pre-K, we use a Teapot tool to address social emotional needs early and prevent and address challenging behaviors. Because a lot of these behaviors are coming with kids in the age 3 and 4 into our schools. We have calm corners in classrooms so kids can help self-regulate. We've provided summer camps. I'm Enough Camp that's been highly popular, especially among some of our middle school students. From a technology standpoint, this safety is really important. So we have the Alongside app for grades 5 through 12. We have Gaggle digital monitoring that helps to alert us when kids are showing signs of behavior that are not appropriate for school, but also maybe indicators of self-harm that we can intervene early. Say Something reporting app. We have a mental health team in each school that meets monthly to help triage students, but also help to plan for future things that we might need to help better support families and students. Our district SHAC committee and several members are on that committee here, meets monthly to address student health and wellness in general, and a lot of wellness focus on that committee. Our Top Dog Clinic with 2 additional full-time school-based mental health clinicians is extremely valuable to us. And we recently have the What Works in Schools grant. This is a federal grant to strengthen supports using data and some of the YRBS data that you're going to hear about later today. So I wanted to share with you some of these things that are happening happening within our schools and some of the things that we are doing already, but we need you. We need every single person in this community to pull together so that we do what's best for children. Most of the things that I mentioned are either locally funded or federally grant funded. And so this is not something that the state automatically gives to schools in order to do our work, but we know that this matters for children. So while teaching and learning is our top business, we know that we want to have all children here and present, and it takes that collaboration to make it happen. So at this time, we're going to turn it over to our four speakers, starting first with Dr. Scott Sinclair.
Good evening. Really grateful to be here. Thank you guys for the invitation. Excited to be with you guys tonight. I've been fun looking around and seeing some familiar faces, but I've been a pediatrician here in the High Country since 2002. And so that's given me a real unique position to sort of see trends within our community, both from a mental health standpoint and a technology standpoint. And so I hope I can bring some of that expertise to you tonight. I'm also a parent. I've got my kids are 20 to 25, but it means that within the St. Clair household, we've had to make a lot of hard decisions about what we're doing with technology in our family and not always agreeing and trying to figure out how do we help do that in our family. So I hope I can bring that parental side to you as well. But I'm also an adult that lives in 2025. And I think I have been grappling and dealing with my own relationship to technology over the last several years. I had an aha moment myself back in January of 2022 where I really found myself struggling to focus and pay attention and be able to read in any sort of sustained way. And I thought it was the aging process, and I am getting older for sure. But I realized it was just the technology in my life really decreasing my ability to do those things. And so I've spent the last 3 years myself trying to figure out how do I have a better, healthier relationship to my devices. So I hope I bring that perspective to you guys as well. What I'd like to do is I'm going to give you a sort of summary update of this book, The Anxious Generation. And then we're going to talk a little bit about phone-free schools because that's one of the main topics that comes up in this book. But this book, Anxious Generation, you can see the subtitle there, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Gives you a flavor for where the author is going here. So who is this author? So his name is Jonathan Haidt. He's a social scientist at New York University, and his specialty is moral psychology, which has a lot to do with how we sort of form our sort of moral foundations, but it has a lot of expertise on child and teen development, but he also has a lot of expertise looking at the data, social science data, and he spent the last decade really studying this issue, and that's what led to his writing this book. I will say, so this has been on the top of the New York Times bestseller list since it got released in March of 2024. And I think the reason is it has really hit a nerve with people. Anybody who interacts with kids, whether it's parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, pastors, can feel this issue touching multiple people in their life. And I know, at least for me, I'm going to give you a summary. I really encourage you to read the book. For me, there's probably not a book I've read in the last 10 years that impacts what I do day to day. This book comes up in my practice every single day, so I'd encourage you to read it. What I'm going to try to do is give you guys a quick overview of what the main argument he's making. So one of the things is it can feel like our devices have been with us forever. But back in 2007 was when the iPhone was released. So 20 years ago, when we were getting ready for school here, in the High Country, phones were not part of what was happening with the start of school, but now it's a very present part of what it's like to come to school. And so 2007, the iPhone gets released, and so although the internet had been out for quite a while, obviously at that time, all of a sudden now the internet is something that you can carry around with you 24/7 in your pocket. A couple years later, the like and share buttons come out, and that also changes the way we interacted with the internet. And so it introduces this idea of virality and things spreading really quickly. And that affects how people experience the internet, not just in your pocket, but now there's this things going viral and engagement. It's a big part of the experience of the internet. A year later, front-facing cameras come in, so selfies become part of our jargon. But what that does is it just changes how we experience the internet. Now you are an active participant in what is happening in the online world. A couple of years later, Facebook buys Instagram and things are off to the races. But this time period of 2010 to 2015 is what Jonathan Haidt refers to as the Great Rewiring. And that's the main thing I want you to take away from this slide, because it will come up in the other slides, but it's really important to know the reason he talks about 2010 to 2015 is by the end of this period, the vast majority of teenagers have an internet-connected device that are with them all the time. But beyond that, devices have just started in that period becoming a daily part of life. They become a daily part of childhood, even down to the youngest ages with tablets, televisions, laptops. They're just a part of life, and therefore they also became a huge part of what it meant to parent. How do I help make decisions about doing that? So this period of 2010 to 2015, the Great Rewiring, is a really important and critical part of what he is talking about. So let me show you what I mean here. This slide is a representative of what we have been seeing, but this is from national data that looks at anxiety and depression. So let me explain this graph to you. Along the bottom is time in years, and you can see that 2010 to 2015 period is grayed out for you. So you can see that where that great rewiring is happening. And on the left is the percentage of young people who are dealing with different mental health challenges. So your blue line is anxiety and the orange is depression. And you can see starting in 2010, we started having an increase of both anxiety and depression. And once you get to 2015, it starts taking off, and it has continued to take off since that time. And so I will tell you that what is being reflected here, that is national data, is certainly been our experience in the high country. And so this is something we deal with every single day. So what's going on here? Well, this would be the main slide for this entire presentation, if you can walk away with one thing. Since we're in a school, this is where the teachers would say, pick up your pencils, this is on the test. This is the main slide, if you can walk away from this. But this is his main point of the book, that we've been overprotecting kids in the real world and underprotecting kids in the virtual world. And the combination of those two things together has led to a mental health crisis for Gen Z and those kids born after 2010, Gen Alpha. I think another way to think about it is, as parents, we want to protect our kids. That's part of our natural instinct. But what I would say is, we've been overestimating the risk to our kids in the actual world. And again, I have a good desire to protect them, we're overprotecting them, but we've been underestimating the risk to our kids in the virtual digital spaces and underprotecting them. And again, a combination of those two has had some pretty significant outcomes. Third way to say it, play-based to phone-based childhood. And for when he uses phone, he's not just talking about the literal phones, although that's it. It's all of the internet-connected devices that are in our lives. So we've moved from a childhood that was predominantly figured out how to grow up by playing, by interacting with other people, to one that is now based in digital technology, and that's fundamentally changing how kids are growing up. So what's going on here? So this is, I'm going to spend a little time talking about these four things, because I think if you want to know what's going on with devices and going on with mental health, you really need to get a better handle on these four things. And he calls these the four foundational harms of phones. But again, phones is not just the phone, it's just internet-connected devices in general. And there's four main things. social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and then addiction. So I'm going to walk through each one of these for you briefly. So this first one is talking about social deprivation. So again, let me explain this slide. On the bottom of this slide are years, and you can see that 2010 and 2015 is grayed out. And when we're looking on the left side, this is the average daily time that people spend with their friends, okay? And this is outside of school, this is not in school. And that blue line is ages 15 to 24. And this has been true for even younger kids, but this is a good graph to sort of show you what's been happening. But what you can see is, starting in 2010 and moving to 2015, kids start spending dramatically less time with their friends outside of school in person. Once you get to 2015, it really starts to go down. And if you glance at this graph, you would say, well, look how much less they were spending time with each other during COVID. You're going to have to trust me on this, but that dramatic decrease actually starts in 2018. And so when we have COVID, COVID just extends what had already started happening before the pandemic hit. So you can see that currently today, kids are spending dramatically less time with their friends. The other thing is the quality of that time is just drastically different, because almost always these interactions are being mediated with the screen right in front of you. So the quantity and quality of time with friends has changed dramatically. And why is that important? Well, particularly for young people, time with their friends is a huge part of their development. It's a way for them to be happy and feel joy. It's a healthy way for them to blow off steam, to actually get some of the stress out. But it's really how they're figuring out how to interact with the world and figuring out who they are. And when you drop that social component out, particularly for teens, and for kids even less than teens, for any school-age kid, it's going to have a dramatic impact on their mental health. Okay, sleep deprivation. Most people sort of have this cliche in their head of the sleepy teenager. And to some degree, that is true. And there's just physiologic reasons why that is. But what we're seeing currently is way different than that. So let me break this slide down for you. Again, on the bottom, you have years, 2010 to 2015. You have the Great Rewriting there for you. And along the left-hand side, this is the percentage of middle school and high school kids who are getting less than 7 hours of sleep. So let me rephrase that. That would be kids who are getting 6 hours of sleep a night or less. And in this age group, we recommend 8 or 9 hours of sleep. So I would consider everybody on this graph to have significant sleep deprivation. And what you can see is, starting in that 2010 to 2015, we start to see a dramatic increase in sleep deprivation. Worse for girls than boys, but it definitely affects both. But if you look on that graph now, if you take the average middle school girl, middle school or high school girl, the average one is going to have significant sleep deprivation. So what does that matter for our mental health? Well, I think I've been influenced a lot in thinking about this by an author called Matthew Walker. He wrote a book, Why We Sleep, which if you'd like to read more about it, will be a great resource for you. But he's a scientist whose basic job is to study sleep. And one of the things that happens when we sleep is, it's our time when our body is resting and recovering from the day, okay? So your body needs at some point to sort of recover from all of its activity, particularly for teens who are having so much stimulation and so much growth in their brain, they need time for their body to rest and recover. But on an emotional side of things, he refers to our REM sleep or our dream sleep. So that's the time when we're dreaming at night, as a nightly visit to the therapist. And I thought this was really helpful, so let me explain what he means by that. When you put people into a sleep lab and you know what type of sleep they're in, and you look at them when they are dreaming, the areas of your brain that light up when you are dreaming are the exact same areas that light up when someone is going to a counselor and in therapy. It has to do with emotions, it has to do with memory consolidation. And so basically at night when you are sleeping, your body is mentally and emotionally processing what's happening during the day. When you are sleep deprived, one of the very first things that happens is your REM sleep or dream sleep goes down. So kids that are sleep deprived, in addition to not having a chance for them to rest and recover in their brain, they're missing out on this really important emotional aspect that happens when we sleep. All right, third, attention fragmentation. I would bet that most adults in here tonight, if you were honest with yourself, would say that your attention is not what it was 5 or 10 years ago. I know it was for me, okay? So we're definitely seeing that with young kids and teenagers. This is a study from University of Michigan and Common Sense Media that just gives you a little snapshot of the attention fragmentation problem, but teens get an average of 240 notifications a day. This is average. And so that ends up being one notification every 4 minutes while you're awake. That is very difficult to pay attention to almost anything when your day is being bombarded every 4 minutes with new incoming information. Now, average teens spend 7 hours a day on their phone. So they are getting bombarded. For teens, the vast majority of that is spent on social media. And when you ask kids, how much of your time that you're not on your phone are you thinking about your phone? And over 50% say constantly. So it's not even as much the time on the phone, although that's a big deal, is when you're not on your phone, all you can think about is getting back on your phone. Hard to pay attention, focus, and concentrate, but part of this is what I would consider emotional resiliency. We were all wired to at times be alone with our thoughts, to be bored, to be angry, to be sad, to be anxious, and part of it is dealing with how do I handle those uncomfortable feelings together? How do I hold that together in my head? Right now, the default response is, I'm not going to deal with any of those emotions, I'm just going to go and pick up my device. And it's significantly impacting kids' ability to be able to regulate those emotions from the littlest ages all the way up through teen time. So attention fragmentation. Last one's addiction. One medical definition of addiction is a compulsive behavior that leads to negative or painful consequences. And so you could make different arguments about how much use is an addictive use, but I think you can see all of the negative consequences of phone use. Addiction is certainly part of what's happening with device use. And particularly when you look at the chemicals in your brain that are getting activated when you are on your phone, and that's dopamine, are the same chemicals that are getting activated in anyone who struggles with substance abuse, okay? So I'm going to give a very simple answer to what does dopamine do, because it does a lot of different things, but one of the primary things it does is it helps us with how we experience pain and pleasure. It has to do with goal setting and motivation, okay? So anytime you're using your phone, you're getting a little hit of dopamine and it feels really good, but as soon as you stop that thing and your dopamine goes down, your body experiences pain. We don't like feeling pain, so we go for more using the phone again. But the more you do that, you have to use the phone in a little bit longer, in a little bit more intense way to get the same dopamine. So this dopamine is going up and down and up and down. I have a quote here from Ann Lemke. She's a Stanford psychologist, one of the leading experts on addiction. And this is what she says about the smartphone. The smartphone is the modern day hypodermic needle delivering dopamine 24/7 for a wired generation. The universal symptoms of withdrawal from any addictive substance are anxiety, irritability, insomnia, and dysphoria. So the best metaphor I've heard of thinking about this up and down motion of dopamine in your brain is the idea of going to a water park and you go to the wave pool, right? So the waves, everything's calm, you turn the wave pool on, and now you got these huge waves, okay? It's fun, a little bit scary, but waves are going up and down, but what's also happening? Water is splashing out of that pool. When you turn the machine off, not only have you ridden all of these waves, but your underlying dopamine levels are low. So in addition to riding all these highs and lows, a lot of our kids are hanging out with dopamine levels that are just not what they need to with their brain to experience a normal, healthy childhood and adolescence. So, just to repeat, social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction, when you combine all these together, they're really having a significant impact on our young people. So, those are some of the heart of the problems that he talks about. So what are the solutions? These are four main ones, and I know in an audience this big, not everybody's going to agree with these recommendations, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with all these recommendations, but I hope you can see from this earlier slides why someone would make recommendations like this, okay? So I'm going to walk through each one of these. So no smartphones before high school, and part of it is difference of a dumb phone versus a smartphone. A dumb phone can do phone, text, and other things. The smartphone is connected to the internet all the time. And what is the ability of elementary and middle schoolers being able to self-moderate themselves on those devices? And so that's why he makes the recommendation of no smartphones before high school. No social media before age 16. Everything I said about those four foundational harms, social media is that on steroids. Heavy users of social media are spending even less time with their friends. They have more problems with sleep deprivation. They have way more problems paying attention to anything, and their dopamine levels are going all over the place. That's the rationale behind no social media before the age of 16. Phone-free schools, bell to bell. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know that's a new policy here in Ashe County, and certainly what Jonathan Haidt would be advocating for. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then play-based childhood is how do we move back away from the devices to growing up being a time that's interacting with outside nature, friends, parents, grandparents, church members. All of the things that help form all of us in this room. How do we get kids moving from devices back to that? So I think one of the things is, as you think about all four of these are all possible to attempt to do by yourself. They're very difficult to do individually. They're way easier to do collectively. Jonathan Haidt makes the comment that a community that would take all four of these seriously in terms of them becoming more social norms in your community, that within 2 years you'd have a dramatic improvement in the mental health of kids in that community. I hope that's the case. That's why I'm here with you guys tonight. So what are ways that you can help change the culture and social norms around you? That's very, very hard. But simply put, speak up. And so one of the ways to speak up is not necessarily having to speak in front of an auditorium, but speak up to friends, family, within your church, at the ball fields, about these issues. Let this not be the issue that people can't talk about. And when you find people that you are in agreement with, link up with them. So speak up and link up and find people who can help engage with the decisions you're trying to make. I'm giving a similar talk over in Watauga. I actually had a couple from our church. This was not me, but they took all four of these and they turned it into a document and they started passing it around to all of the families in their Sunday school saying, hey, who would want to join us? They have a 5-year-old and a newborn. Who would want to join us and say, hey, as parents here in this Sunday school classroom, who would want to do this together? Which I thought was a beautiful thing. And I just found out about that last week. So that's the kind of things I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to make a couple of comments about educational stuff and then I'll be done. This slide here is a slide of educational performance from what's called the nation's scorecard. But basically, since the 70s, we've been taking test scores from 4th graders and 8th graders. So we have a lot of data, and this was from 8th graders. And along the bottom line, you have years, on the left you have scores. And when this slide was originally made, it was to highlight the dark blue, where you see all the learning loss during COVID, which I think everybody in here would agree is tragic, and that's, if you're in education and care about education, really tough to see. But what the red box is supposed to indicate is that is the great rewiring ages, years 2010 to 2015. And you can see that both reading and math scores peaked in 2012. And it's been a slow leak ever since. Hard to show you for sure that this is all devices, but this is certainly part of what's happening in the educational space. So, there's been a lot happening state by state on different legislation, and that's true in North Carolina. So just real quickly to tell you, this last February, the North Carolina Senate passed a bill 42-1 about cell phone free schools. In March, the House passed a bill 114-3. And for those of you who do not follow state politics very much, this is almost unheard of to have that much agreement on an issue, okay? So this was rural, urban, red, blue. People came together to make this happen. The governor talked about this in his State of the State speech, and then he put together a student safety council whose first job was to put together best practices for schools. And one of the things when they came out with their phone-free school guidelines was bell to bell or away for the day was definitely the best practice for phone-free schools. So let me quickly go to this so I can finish up. My last slide of graphs, I promise, okay? Last one. But the reason I want to show this is to show why bell to bell is recommended as the best practice to do this. On the far right, is a situation where teachers set the rules. This was from a huge national survey of teachers. And they asked the question, how disruptive is student use of cell phones during instructional time for you? So on that far right where it says teachers set the rules, everything in orange is phones are distracting, okay? So 79% said phones were distracting, but 47% said they were very distracting, okay? So that yellow-orange bar is phones are really impairing our ability to teach. When you take phones away just during instructional time, but you let kids use them during school, during the in-between time at school, between classes, lunchroom, you can see that from a teacher perspective, they didn't see much difference in that. The main change you start to see is when you say, hey, kids can have their phones with them, but they can't use them during the day. You start to see a dramatic decrease in the disruption in learning environment, with the very lowest distractions being when they're stored away in some sort of storage device, okay? So I think, hopefully, as you think about what your local school board has done, they were working from this kind of information here. So what are the benefits? I'm not gonna read through all of these, but I think the main thing is trying to make school a place where kids can learn, a place where teachers can teach, but also a place where human beings can interact with each other. Kid to kid, kid to teacher, kid to administrator. And I do think phone-free schools is a great place to help our kids start having some different habits around device use. Again, I'm happy to take questions at the end. These are a couple of resources. AfterBabel.com is his Substack. It's free, you just go there. He's got articles that are about devices and child development. I read this every week, but it's not written towards pediatricians. It's written towards teachers, parents, anybody can read these. And then anxiousgeneration.com is another great resource for you. So thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to answering questions. And again, happy to talk to anybody after we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. And I'm going to put the QR code up just in case you guys did not. Maybe I'll put the QR code up and maybe closed it out. Maybe. There you go. So if you guys want to scan, if you didn't already, and you want to ask some questions, again, we'll get those at the end. But thank you, Dr. St. Clair. That's very valuable information. And from the feedback we've received from kids so far in our classrooms and in our high schools especially, I think while it was may not have been welcome for them to have their phones taken away during the entire school day, the feedback we've had has been really positive so far. And I hope that continues. So next we have one of a fantastic partner for Ashe County Schools, Jen Green. Jen is the Director of Appalachian Healthcare, and when I say fantastic partner, she's truly leading from a point where how can we help best support what goes on in our community, and she's always looking for other grant opportunities, how can we fund each other to really make things happen. And so she has been able to help us to find resources for school nurses. That was especially important through COVID, and I think continues now. And most recently, through some grant opportunities, has helped us to have some behavioral mental health specialists in our schools, not just to help our students, but help our teachers to help our students as well. So thank you to Jennifer Green, and we look forward to her sharing some local data.
Hey everybody, nice to see you all. I'm probably not going to be quite as exciting as Scott Sinclair, but I will do my best. As the public health director, one of my jobs is looking at big public health issues and how they impact our community. So if this talk that he gave was not compelling enough, I want to give you another reason to pay attention to why we need to think more about our device use and technology. And that is, we know a couple years ago, our former US Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, actually put out an alert, and it was around the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And we know that we have very important needs for social connection. This is not just for our kids, it's for us as adults too. Our structure, our function, and our quality of relationships help inform that really fabric of our social connection, which is incredibly impactful for our health. And we know that when technology displaces our in-person engagement, when it takes over our attention, reduces the quality of our interactions, and even diminishes our self-esteem, we can actually make the problem of loneliness, the fear of missing out, the conflict, even worse. So if you needed another reason to pick up a copy of the book, go to the website that he mentioned, I wanted to make sure you had that. But now I want to talk about some other problems. How many of you in school would you say maybe see vaping in the community? Would you raise your hand? Yeah. So vaping has been a new way for tobacco products to be marketed. And we can see here in this picture that we began to start seeing more policies to help protect people from things like secondhand smoke. And if you see the red circle there on the slide, the youth e-cigarette epidemic was declared in 2018, and that's because we continue to see more and more vape devices come on the market. Similarly, we have a few more graphs. E-cigarettes, or you can see these vape devices called Juul, have been prominently available for our youth and sold, and you can see the Juul in the dotted black line that shows their sales that was going completely up. Their market share continued to grow, both because of the ease of the device and also because of the flavors marketed more towards children. We also see, again, another way that technology is influencing our behaviors, and that is through social media. We see lots and lots of social promoters and influencers who are promoting the use of these products. And if you see that we've had a challenge here, these two lines, the gray line is in middle school use, the blue line is in high school use, and this is across a 30-day use of e-cigarettes in North Carolina. And we were beginning to see a big jump, but in 2017 to 2019, we actually saw an increase of 24%. So fast forward a little bit, and this is kind of busy, so I hope you'll get to look at it later, but in 2022, we had 1 in 8 high school students who are currently using a tobacco product. The reason this matters is we know that when people start using tobacco before the age of 21, they're higher likelihood of having a longer term addiction to it. And all of the things that we have talked about tonight about attention and having a great learning experience, we want to make sure that nicotine is also not a problem that's going to detract from that. So what I want to share tonight briefly is an opportunity that we get at App Healthcare to partner with Ashe County High School and Ashe County Middle School, and we collect data, and it's it's an anonymous survey that we do every 2 years, and it covers a broad range of health topics, and we've got our latest information that shows this is the number of participants we had in the last time that we collected the data. So what you'll see here, these are questions that were asked on our survey and the responses that we've seen. The good news is that we're seeing a trend in the right direction, I would say. Ashe County High School students who were asked if they've ever used an electronic vapor product actually went down in 2025 from 2023, but we've still got 21% of those who participated who said they've ever used a vape device. And I'm sorry my slide got cut off here, but 9.5% of high school students reported that they have used within the last 30 days. Now, I want to just say this, we know that there's very little regulation with the way that vaping products are offered to our youth and adults. And one of the things that concerns me as the public health director is what kind of other substances get put into these vape devices. So this is actually a question around whether a student has used a vape that included marijuana or marijuana derivative here. And we've got almost 12% who responded with yes. Again, down from 2023, but about even to where we were in 2021. So we'll have to watch that over time to see if that continues to improve. We also asked middle school students about whether they've ever used a vapor product, and we're at 13.5%, and this trend is actually going in the wrong direction. We started at 9.6% of students saying they've ever used it, up to 13.5% in 2025. Again, middle school students were asked the same question about whether they've used a vape product that included marijuana, and we've got 4% of middle school students who responded with yes. But this next slide is actually probably the most compelling of all of the information, and it's kind of busy, but I'll go through it slowly so we can talk about it. Of the Ashe County High School students who vaped 3 or more times per month, they were 4.2 times as likely to feel bothered by feeling down, depressed, or hopeless for several days or more within a 2-week period, as compared to those who either didn't vape or vaped infrequently. The Ashe County High School students who vaped 3 or more times a month were 2 times more likely to feel bothered by not being able to stop or control worrying for several days or more within a 2-week period, as compared to those who either didn't vape or vaped infrequently. And for those high school students who vaped 3 or more times a month, they were almost 2 times as likely to feel bothered by having little interest or pleasure in doing things for several days or more within a 2-week period, as compared to other Ashe High School students who either didn't vape or vaped infrequently. And then finally, the Ashe County students who vaped 3 or more times per month were 1.5 times as likely to feel bothered by feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge for several days or more within a 2-week period, as compared to Ashe High School students who either didn't vape or vaped infrequently. Now, I'm a mom, I have 2 kids, and I can tell you that both of them have been exposed to lots of people have used vapes around them, and not in our family, but certainly all in the community. And so I know that it's challenging because we have kids that are faced with different challenges than we had when some of us were growing up. But the point here is that if there were a good reason to try to protect our youth from this addiction, it's also because it's going to impact their mental health. So I wanted to make sure we reviewed that. This is some of our resources. I hope you visited our table. We've got a few tables. We've got some App Health folks here. I see David and Mason up at the front. But we hope that you will reach out to us if you have a student who needs support. Obviously, your school is such a great partner for us, and we have a great relationship, so your school counselor. But we want to make sure that folks who are ready to quit have the resources to do that, and we can help if you need that help. And that's for adults too. So now I'm going to switch gears for just a moment, and I want to talk about why we need better laws to help protect our youth. Right now in the country, it is a federal law that tobacco products are sold to 21 and up. But in North Carolina, our law actually is for 18 and up. And so we have a little bit of a discrepancy in North Carolina's law in terms of being in compliance with what we know is good to protect public health. And the reason that we think that Tobacco 21 is the way to go is because we want to protect developing brains, we want to reduce youth access, and we want to save lives and prevent disease over time. And Tobacco 21, really what we're talking about here is what we've called Solly's Law. And you're going to hear from Solly's mom here in a minute, but I want to just say we need better laws to protect our youth. Raising the legal tobacco product sales age to 21 would actually align with federal standards. It would establish a retailer permitting system to improve merchant education and enforce compliance and hold violators accountable. It would reduce confusion for retailers and consumers, and it would help schools combat the use of e-cigarettes and vaping products and protect the students that they're trying to serve to reach their academic goals. So we're here tonight because we care about all of you, we care about our public health of our community, and we want to offer any opportunity that you might want to take in helping us make that law a reality. I'm here I'm going to be here, and so not only will we take questions, but I'm happy to talk more with you if you're interested in learning more about how you can help. So really appreciate the time tonight, and thank you all very much.
So thank you, Jen. We really appreciate your partnership, but we also appreciate for helping us to bring forth our next guest, who has a very special interest, not just in Solly's Law, but in helping to protect our children. And I hope that her experience that she's going to share today will give you a different insight and help us work together in order to make sure all of our children are safe. So please welcome Charlene Zorn to the stage. And I'd like to say that this is Solly, her son.
So I drove up from Wilmington this morning. As I was leaving town, I went past New Hanover High School on the way to my daughter's house to drop my daughter off. New Hanover High School is where my son Solomon went to school. Instead of starting his senior year today, watching my son go to school, the tradition I have with my kids is that we always went out for breakfast the first day of school. Instead of doing that today, I was driving here to talk to you about my son that died on June 17, 2023 from vaping, 12 days after his 15th birthday. My stepson played football his freshman year. He was a healthy kid, rode his bike, went to the gym with his daddy, was very addicted to technology. When I started researching this book, I was just dumbfounded. I just kept hearing Solomon's name in my head over and over and over again. Somewhere in between 7th, 8th grade, one of his friends gave him a vape. His dad caught him with the vape once. We had a conversation. Vape was gone, never saw it again. In March of 2023, Solomon came down with what we thought was a severe cold, which quickly we learned was so much more. He went from being a healthy kid to a kid who could not walk to the bus stop. In less than 30 days from the time he got sick, he was in a pulmonologist's office. She immediately knew that it was from vaping. He got what was called popcorn lungs. He wasn't doing drugs. He wasn't doing anything but a vape. But the vapes have high dose of nicotine. It affects your ability to think. It's highly addictive. They're inhaling metals. The pediatrician, the pulmonologist tried everything. New nebulizer treatments, steroids, antibiotics, nothing worked. He kept getting progressively worse, different steroids. There were days that Solomon could not even get from the living room to the kitchen without being out of breath. A few days before he died, he had seen the pulmonologist, she had done a CT scan, had sent us the results and said that his heart and his lungs were surrounded with fluid. He was in congestive heart failure. That was Tuesday. He was supposed to see a cardiologist the following Monday. Here comes Friday morning, and his dad worked nights. And every morning, they would have this little banter on the phone about what the day was going to look like. School had been out about 10 days. They were going to come home. Al was going to make pancakes for him for breakfast. He talked to Solomon on the phone. He heard Solomon say, "Okay, love you, Dad." And he heard the phone drop. He was 15. Kids throw their phones down. You don't think anything about it. He walked in the house and found our son face down in the carpet, not breathing. He urinated all over himself. He was foaming at the mouth. He had to turn his son over, had to start giving him rescue breaths, call the paramedics. By the time EMS got there, he coded on them 5 times. By the time they got him stable enough to transport him to the hospital, Solomon had no brain activity. We got to the hospital and they're like, "We need to try and get his body to cool down and see if we can get him to wake up. Are we gonna have any results?" They said, "We need to wait 24 hours and give us 24 hours. In the meantime, we had to call his biological mother, who hadn't seen him in a little while, and say, "Hey, come to the hospital." Can you imagine the other parent who has not seen their kid but once in a year all of a sudden gets a phone call saying, "Come to the hospital, your kid's on the ventilator." So Dad, my mom and myself spent a lovely 24 hours in an ICU together, making really tough decisions, talking about what was going to be our next steps. Thankfully, I had a really close friend who was a social worker in the PICU at the hospital in New Hanover, who kept me 2 steps ahead of everything we were supposed to know. When she left the hospital on Friday night, the doctor said, "Your friend won't be here when you get back tomorrow morning." She was shocked that I was still there. By then, Solomon's kidneys had shut down. So we get to mid-morning Saturday and the doctor comes in and says there's no brain activity. There's nothing we can do at this point. It's time to make a decision. At the time, so between our blended family, we were that lovely 8 is enough. And 3 of our adult children, Solomon was a baby. 2 were in Charlotte. My daughter had just graduated from Western, so she was still in Cullowhee. They're already heading to Wilmington. 3 of our other children are in Virginia and New Jersey and couldn't get there in time. And my son was in Raleigh and unfortunately couldn't get there in time. So we wait, everybody comes, and so imagine this. We're all standing in the room. Me, bio mom, his dad, our kids, as we have to say goodbye to Solomon. We were all there as he took his last breath when they took him off that ventilator. I had to watch his father, who had sole custody of his child since he was 6 months old, who this child was his whole world, watch his son take his last breath. I had to watch 3 of my children watch their brother take his last breath. I had to watch his bio mom, who I don't even really like, watch her son take his last breath. No less how I felt doing it. Since then, I've become pretty close with Solomon's pulmonologist, and she said to me the only way he would have survived was with a complete heart and lung transplant. What are the odds of a 15-year-old getting a heart and lung transplant, surviving it and living that lifestyle? From something that's completely preventable. So this is 2023. We talked about COVID, 2020. So much of that time, Solomon was home. He wasn't in school. He didn't have that interaction with the other kids in the base. It maybe was a year and a half, at the most, that he had access to a vape. Nobody in our family smoked. None of his siblings used vapes. It wasn't that it was something he was hitting on all the time. But the problem is, once these kids start using those vapes, it's not like a cigarette you smoke and you put it out. They hit it over and over and over again. So they're getting those high dose of nicotine. It's affecting their brains. It's affecting their ability to think. It's affecting their mental health. In Solomon, we definitely saw mood stuff that we didn't know what it was from. In 8th grade, he aggressively played football. He was a tank. He was a big boy. His freshman year, he lackadaisically played football. He didn't have the motivation. He wasn't putting the effort forward, and we can figure out why. In hindsight, we know why. It was all from the vape. In the last, so every so often I ask Google, how many days ago was June 17, 2023? So I asked Google that this morning. 800 days ago, my stepson died. In these last 800 days, I have spent trying to get the state of North Carolina to raise the legal age to 21 to protect our children. I've been everywhere I could go to speak. I kind of feel like my little Liberty car is turned into this little Zoom thing around the road. And Jen and I met through the Tobacco 21 Advisory Committee, and when she texted me a few weeks ago, she's like, "Do you think you'll come to Boone? Come up to ask for me?" And I'm like, "Say the word, I'm on my way." This is that important to me that I was willing to drive 5 hours. And I dragged my best friend 5 hours because I didn't want to drive alone. And I said, "Jen, I'm here. I'm not doing just one presentation. You need to set up something else for me to do while I'm here. It's a waste of your time and mine for me to come for 5 hours and do one presentation." So tomorrow morning, I'm going to another high school and talking to a whole high school full of kids. You have to talk to your kids. And I'm not talking about your 11th to 12th graders. I'm talking about your 5-year-olds, your 6-year-olds, your 11-year-olds. I can't tell you in the last 800 days how many people have come to me talking about their 5th grade kid got caught stealing so-and-so's vape, taking it to school, they were the vape dealer. They weren't using it, but they were selling it. Or how a lady in Las Vegas, her daughter, thank God, survived popcorn loves. And we talk on a regular basis since I found out about her a few months ago. I just talked to her last week. Her daughter still has respiratory problems, but she's doing okay. I have a coworker whose kid ended up in the hospital with a collapsed lung from vaping. And when I said to her, you need to get your kid into a pulmonologist, I think she thought I was crazy, that I was overreacting, and I'm like, I don't know, my kid's not here. I understand that Solomon was probably the rare situation. He's not the only kid who's died. There are kids who needed lung transplants. But every kid that we can prevent from starting vaping is another life we're gonna save, because it leads to addiction and other sources. Kids who start using vapes young are gonna turn into kids that try weed, that get into other things. And nowadays there's fentanyl in everything. Search your kids' backpacks. Are they getting packages from Amazon you don't know they had? Why are they getting all these packages? Do they have all sorts of weird things that vapes are hidden in now? The strings on their hoodies, they look like toys, like from Mandalorian, things from Toy Story, highlighters, sorry. Check what your kids have conversations. Does something seem abnormal? There's electronic vape products that have games in them, so you think your kid has a game. I love this idea that the phones are locked up during the day. Onslow County and Jacksonville put vape detectors in their schools. How many people don't want to go to a my son's a high school teacher in Wake County. He tells me all the time, Mom, we don't go near the bathrooms. Jen and I have a friend named Jake who's a school resource officer in Alamance County. And listening to him talk about all the vapes he confiscated last school year. It's not just Wilmington, it's not just here, it's all across this nation. But it's gonna take all of us to save our kids. Anytime you need me, Jen can find me. Jen can always find me. I'm happy to come back up here if I have to. Please don't ask me to come when it's snowing, because I don't drive in snow. I grew up in Phoenix, I live at the beach, snow is not my thing. But if you're in Wilmington and you want me to talk to your kid, call me. I'll meet you anywhere you want to go. If you want someone to scare your kid, let me do it. I'm the one, I can promise you. Please talk to your children. And if you want to do me a big favor, call your legislatures, call your senators, call your county commissioners, call your school board members. Tell them to write a resolution to support Solly's Law. Tell them to tell Raleigh we need to pass this law. That we don't need to be one of the 7 states that don't have a tobacco 21 law. I get that we're a tobacco state. There are other tobacco states that passed a T21 law that are saying we're protecting our youth. I need you guys to help me do that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us and helping to keep Sully's memory alive. And hopefully we'll have people in here who feel the charge to protect our youth, because why should we have vapes access to our children? Now, we do have vape detectors in our schools, but they do not catch everything. And I think it's really important that we invest in things that are going to help catch, but I would so much rather prevent our students' use to begin with. And that's going to take the partnership. I know last year when we had a little bit of criticism for implementing some of our security measures with our metal detectors. And initially that caught some vapes. And then we found some children, students, and this is not just high school students, we're talking about middle and elementary students who are bringing them to school, but they're hiding them in things like metal water bottles. and containers, and they're putting them deep in zippers in their backpacks. They're hiding them in places that you might not think about, hidden pockets in their jackets. They're very easy to hide. So it's going to take all of us here to make sure that we know that we're asking questions, and that we are asking our children to partner with us and say, hey, you know, I bought this for you, so therefore this is mine. That's what I would tell my child. You know, the jacket, the phone, you know, whatever it is, it's mine to search. Bedrooms are the same way, and there are a lot of ways, and there are videos that are readily available online where you can see where children get really good at hiding these things, and it's because they're addicted. So we've got to help each other in order to keep our kids safe. So thank you, Charlene, for sharing your story, and we'll get some of this information out to our community as well. So our last speaker here, let me see if I can find, there we go. So our last speaker today is Jared Zorn. He's an FBI special agent. He's here with his boss today, and Jared is someone who can help share information on online safety for our children. He's come from Hickory. He works out of the FBI office in Hickory, and what he's going to share happens in Ashe County. So this is not some faraway place or even down the road in Hickory that we have issues with our children being exposed to things that we don't want to think about. But we're here to listen to him, learn from him some of the things that he's seeing right here and across the country with human trafficking, missing kids, child exploitation, endangered runaways, labor trafficking, and some of the ways that we can help our children stay safe online. So Jared, thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I just want to start with Charlene. Thank you so much for coming and sharing that story. That took an insane amount of courage, and I admire the strength and courage you showed here today, and I hope that you continue your mission, and I know you'll see it through just from our brief interaction. So thank you again. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Jared Schaefer, from down in Hickory. I work down there with 3 other agents, and I'm just gonna go ahead and apologize from the get-go if I'm stuttering or speaking too fast. My boss is here, and she was smiling maniacally when the QR code came up. So just be ready for that. And again, I work down in Hickory. There's 4 of us total, so I'm gonna go ahead and debunk the rumor that all of you have an FBI agent assigned to you. You don't. I'm sorry, I know it's not that interesting. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and speak on online safety. I work violent crimes against children, internet crimes against children, human trafficking, the whole gambit. And you know, when they just mentioned, you know, all of these things are violations that we run into in these 11 counties that we cover, with Ashe being one of them down in Hickory. So. With that being said, if it comes to the internet, it's kids and teens can be exploited on there. I mean, I've heard one good metaphor that was basically, you know, would you let a stranger into your house, right? Would you let them kick the door in? Would you let them in unbeknownst to you? That's what's happening on your kids' devices day in and day out. That quote you mentioned earlier with the overprotection in the real world and underprotection in the virtual world is ringing very true. And like I said, we work these cases, and the amount of cases we see that comes to sextortion of minors, exploitation of minors, you know, these predators online, it's overwhelming, and it is everywhere. But I'm here to talk about what we can do to safeguard these kids and your children, and you know, and go from there. So I do like interaction from the audience, so I do want to see show of hands. How many parents here? Okay, all right, keep hands up, please. How many parents are confident that they know every social application their kid is on? Wow, all right. I'm taking my hand down because my daughter's 3, so I'll probably be there with you though. So, I mean, and the rewiring age, is that what it was called? I grew up in that. And it was the Wild West, right? You know, all these applications coming out when you're in high school and college, it was literally the Wild West. And it still pretty much is. And we have a bit more of a grasp on it now, but technology is far, far surpassing our laws and, you know, just everything in that regard. And we're playing catch up all of the time. So, you know, see who's brave enough. Will someone raise their hand and tell me what they think a child predator looks like? Just a profile of them. I'll come back to you if no one else does it. What's that? That's a fact. That's a fact. Anyone, exactly. Back in the day, we used to think, you know, the band, let's see if it pops up, hang on. Yeah, all right. Yeah, free candy, right? They're not giving out free candy anymore. So it's that's what we used to think. But the reality is it can be anybody, anywhere, any position. I mean, it's literally mind-boggling. You cannot guess who these people are. I mean, there's no bias. It's men and women. It's all ages from 19 to late 90s. I mean, it's a wide range. And the internet has allowed these people just the access to these kids unbeknownst to a lot of parents, because again, we don't have that protection in this virtual world. On the left hand, we got, you know, this guy, he was online, he was chatting with a 13-year-old girl pretending he was a 12-year-old girl, right? Talks her into sending nude photos of herself and then tries arranging meets. The one in the center was a federal case that was referred to us by a foreign police agency. The images of the foreign subject contain pictures of this North Carolina specific content. The teacher was drugging students and taking pictures of them at school, right? On the right, it was a Facebook case. Online is a 14-year-old girl with social media. He does searches using common last names and sends friend requests to these kids. And then he starts sending them images of a 14-year-old girl victim and then tries asking to trade nudes, right? And the issue is with a lot of these predators, you know, that's where the sextortion begins. And that's what we really need to talk about, because, you know, it's a candid conversation, and to protect every kid against it, that's the tough conversations we have to have. So a vast majority are not hands-on sexual exploitation. Again, I mean, I'm not going to give a percentage, but a large percentage of them are online, virtual, through social media, everything like that. You know, they're being enticed to produce, and I'm going to be candid, it's a wide range of audience here. I will try not to curse, so please don't grade me if I do, but they produce child pornography, right? So they take nude pictures of themselves based on the fact of these people get into their accounts, they learn about them, they learn about who their family is, they learn about, you know, who these kids are, and then they use that information against them to then have them do this and extort them from there, right? And again, that's just the lack of control that we as parents have on this realm of virtual, and, you know, just the virtual social media and stuff like that. You know, predators can pose as whoever they want online. I mean, it doesn't matter. And with kids' curiosity, it's quite easy to hold up that facade in those regards. And it's not fair to these kids. They deserve to be curious. It's a part of their development, you know. And the fact that they are facing these challenges is just not fair to them. So, you know, we can talk about the sextortion. Basically, there is an organization called National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC for short. They are an organization that receives tips from online platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it. They receive these tips, and then they forward these tips to law enforcement, such as FBI or local law enforcement, such as Ashe County Sheriff's Office. So when they do that, that is something, those are the types of cases that we can work. And I want to get to the point, and this presentation is to avoid any kids involved in your lives to getting to that point. We need to be able to protect them before it happens like that. So, obviously, when it comes to sextortion, if, the kid's online talking to somebody and that begins, and I'm gonna get into all the red flags and stuff like that, and I didn't make these slides, so they were kind of cringe, sorry that Drake's on there, but, so, we'll go in this next slide. We got, I don't even know what most of these apps are. I'll be honest, I have no idea, right? They're just constantly coming out, and we cannot keep up with them. And obviously, what they'll do is they meet on these very popular applications, and then they'll try migrating the children from one application to a more unknown one, right? Such as, for example, I don't know if anyone's heard of Kik, Telegram. Those are two big ones. They're encrypted, and they believe that, these predators believe they are more concealed in these environments on those chatting applications. So that's often what they do. Now I will mention, because again, this was more for teenagers, but I do know a wide audience here. So Roblox, has anyone heard of Roblox? Yeah, it's no good. Let's get there. That video game, it's the most popular video game, in the world right now when it comes to kids, that Fortnite. So these kids are on Roblox, and these predators are on there posing as their friends. They're, they want to start conversations, they want to be there for these kids when they're having a bad day and stuff like that, when their friends aren't or their parents may not be available because they're working, and you just don't know. So these people take those opportunities and take advantage of them in that regard. So, obviously some red flags. And the kids, they have to ask themselves, how did they get, your profile? How did you start talking to them, And when they start sending you information about yourself, like you go to a certain school, did they spell it right? Are they speaking good English, right? Because oftentimes it's a foreign entity. I need a drink of water, I'm so sorry. All right, we're back. So, maybe. Now this one's pretty funny. So, when I was a 9th grade boy, I can assure you, and it may be hard to believe, no junior girls were into me. Okay, none at all. So any 9th grade boys out there who are being contacted by supposed older females, I can assure you, likely not female, and I'm going to be anatomically correct, they do want to see your penis. They just are going to use it against you, okay? So just keep that in mind. When it's too good to be true, it is, okay? Immediately when they request for photos, when they do that, it's a big red flag, right? Why do you want to see? Why do you want to see? What's the point of that, right? Broken English, like I said. Oftentimes, the Nigerian prince romance scams from back in the day. Their new tradecraft is this. This is what they're doing now: is extorting minors in our country, essentially. That's their new thing. And then be aware of their domain names and their application names and stuff like that. Those are usually key giveaways to, again, is it someone you know in person? Is it someone your friend knows in person? We're already getting a little bit much there, right? We want it to be direct contact, that you know this person in real life, because again, that's going to mitigate these contacts with these predators online posing as people they are not. And AI was mentioned earlier. Wow, that is accelerating quickly. I mean, you know, these people online, they can literally just create an image, just like that, out of thin air, and pretend that's who they are. It's so easy for them. And again, if it's too good to be true, it is. And obviously, if you do, you know, if a child does send a picture, don't panic, okay? It's not the end of the world. And don't send any more once you realize that it is, you know, a scam or it's someone they're not posing to be. Don't give in to any of their demands. Don't go to the store and start buying gift cards. Don't do any of that. I've ran into cases where kids literally go and spend all their money in savings on gift cards when they, you know, should have told a trusted adult so that we could stop it at that point. Don't delete the chats or the photos or destroy the phone. And I'm going to get into, you know, why that's important. Here we go. So, public accounts, you know, what are you sharing out there? I've ran into cases where kids are online and they don't use any of the safeguards these applications provide, such as keeping things private. They are public, and predators online can go onto those pages whenever they want, and they can take those images and of your kids, you know, going to high school dances and stuff like that, and you know, do with what they will to them. And it's a scary world out there, and I just want to bring awareness to the fact that we need to enable those safeguards. We need to be aware of what our kids are on. We need to be able to you know, implement those parental controls onto these applications. 8 hours a day is average for screen time now. That's our full-time jobs. It's mind-boggling. And the fact that all that time is spent on social media. What are they doing, right? So obviously, this personally identifying information, your demographics, you know, your name, birthday, school location, they're going to use that information against those kids, right? So with reporting, obviously, you know, your SRO, you know, first things first, parents, this is huge for you guys, just so you guys know where you need to go if you run into this with, you know, any kids in your lives. Obviously, the school resource officer, local law enforcement, the FBI, we have a tip line that you can report straight to. NECMEC, Take It Down, it's that organization I mentioned earlier. What that is, basically, if you don't want to get local, you know, law enforcement involved, and you just want to take that image of that child and submit it to NECMEC, what they can do is they can hash that image. And when I say that, it basically means to fingerprint that image, right? And what they do is they put it into their database, and then anytime that photo is detected anywhere, it gets removed, right? And it can be anonymous, it can be on behalf of someone else. So, you know, with all that being said, that's, you know, again, I just want to make mention to the fact that, you know, everyone in this room, your value and your complexity is not measured by social media. It is measured by who you are, and social media is just a tool. Do not let it value your life. And that is all I have.
So the more we know, of course, the better we can be for our children, and the more information they have to protect themselves and for us to help them, the better off we'll be. Thank you to each of our guests for sharing their stories, their information, and their time with each of us. On behalf of Ashe County Schools and Ashe County, thank you. Jamie or Amy, do you have that, the questions there? If you want to bring up the microphone for our guests. This is somebody else's computer, so I don't have all the questions that have been submitted up, but I do have some questions that I have prepared. Do we have questions in there? Okay, so the most recent question that we received is about vaping, and it could be for anyone on this panel. Where are underage students in Ashe County getting access to vaping products? Does anyone have that information?
I'm gonna start, but then I'm gonna look over at Shirley because she's an expert on this. But I think the key is that the vaping products are pervasive, and there is no laws in place now that has a way for retailers to be held accountable for how things are sold. So we know that getting access can be from multiple places, but I'll just say from a seller's point of view, you can get it at pretty much any store, right? And depending on how vigilant that retail merchant is in terms of looking at IDs, one of the things that we know is when someone comes in and they buy alcohol, we ID folks, right? That we all know that's the law of the land. And you're looking to see whether someone is over 35. And when you are selling a vape product, there's really very loose language in terms of how that is evaluated. And so it depends on whether the seller is going to be paying attention to how close they are to actually IDing someone. You are legally supposed to be 21 according to the federal law, but the state law, again, as Shirley mentioned, we are still one of 7 states that has not matched our state law. The state law is still 18. So the reason that this matters is we've got to change our law. We've got to make it even with the federal law. And we need to have a way so that there's some clear guidance around how sellers are selling these products. We need to know that there's a clear way for them to get permits and to be able to educate the people who are doing this.
I think the big part with the permitting, retailers that want to do it right are. So one of the big complaints is that they want to charge retailers this $245, $250 fee to get a retail permit. Most of these retailers are already paying a permitting fee because they sell alcohol. It's the same fee, they're paying it once. But I don't know about here, but in Wilmington, every corner there's a new vape shop. There's a vape shop around the corner from my house that the sign looks like a Toys R Us sign. It says Smokes R Us. That is not meant to attract me or Jen. That is meant to attract our kids. They're getting them from their friends. They're getting them from their siblings. They're getting them from somebody on the corner who knows that they can sell them to our kids. The same person who's maybe selling them drugs or other things. There's not one standard place. There's not a gas station you can go into that doesn't sell them. There was a new Mediterranean restaurant in Wilmington. I was so excited to try it because it was right around the corner from my house. Didn't realize when I walked into it, because it was in like a convenience kind of store, that the entire front half of the store was a huge vape shop. I had a huge anxiety attack. I left there in tears because I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? Didn't get the Mediterranean food. Everywhere you go, why is there selling vapes in a restaurant? It's everywhere.
Just quickly, I think linking all these things together, the vast majority of our patients that we see who are got problematic use of vapes are usually self-medicating, dealing with anxiety and depression. So all these things are sort of linked together.
So this question is specifically for Special Agent Jared Schaefer. How can parents talk to their children about responsible and safe online behavior in a way that builds trust?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. So, I mean, you know, it's similar to, you know, the awkward, candid conversations of like the birds and the bees. You know, like it's conversations you don't want to have, but you need to, right? And just be honest and and express your concern for them in those realms, because again, it is so easy for these people to be able to convince, you know, these kids anything. It's truly easy. They you know, they really target the vulnerabilities of these developing minors and stuff like that, and you just need to be cognizant of that fact and just, you know, talk about what they're accessing, what they're doing on these platforms and stuff like that. And it's that hard balance between, you know, having the trust in your child versus protecting them, right? And you got to be able to balance that line and just be cognizant of what they're on, what they're doing, and, you know, have those conversations, because again, you need to express your concern for them. And I know teenagers are going to be like, you know, teenagers are going to be teenagers, right? But you just need to be adamant that you are concerned for them and that you love them and that you care for them. Right?
So this question is for Dr. Scott St. Clair. How does screen time on phones and tablets compare with TV time? Do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, so much of the device time, a lot of it is context, okay? And I would say if screen time is family together time, I think the impact of that screen time is going to be pretty little, right? If you're sitting down and watching a ball game or you guys are watching a show together in the family room is way different than your kid up in the bedroom alone doing this. I think we'd all agree, huge difference between those two. So how are our device times helping bring us together, like doing stuff together as a family? How are the device time making us more alone, more isolated, less connected socially? And I think there's a huge difference in those, in that use of screens.
So this stays with you again, Dr. Sinclair. What type of rules did you establish for your children and for yourself restricting phone use?
Great question. So part of it is, you know, I do this for a living. And so even before my kids got to the age of phones, I had serious concerns about phones. So what I'm about to tell you, what we did with our kids, does not mean our kids were happy with these rules, okay? In fact, they were pretty unhappy with these rules. But I will say they are now in their 20s. They were happy these were the rules. So our oldest, he had a dumb phone all the way till he went off to college. Our middle son had a dumb phone until he turned 16, and he got a smartphone when he was 16. And then, of course, the baby of the family got the smartphone first at 15, because that's sort of how those things go. But I will say part of the reason was our older boy's dumb phone broke. And back when we were trying to get her another dumb phone, the dumb phone market had basically gone dry. And we couldn't find one, so I ended up giving her my phone and got one. But we did 15, 16, and 18. And so I think just important for people to know there are ways for your kids to be able to text and make phone calls that does not involve having an internet-connected device with them all the time. I think that's really important to know. So again, a lot of hard conversations about why we have those rules, but those are the St. Clair family rules.
So this is for Jennifer Green. Do you think the vapes are causing anxiety, or the more anxious children are more likely to use vapes?
Well, I think Dr. St. Clair spoke to this a minute ago, and I think that it's important that we realize we gotta meet kids, adults where they are, right? These substances are here because we're in this environment and sometimes we're looking for ways to cope, right? So part of the reason that we have this strong partnership with Ashe County Schools is we believe that kids need early connections. They need to know that it's normal to reach out and ask a trusted adult for help. And I think that we can't tag all of anxiety and depression on vaping. We also can't tag all of the problems and not include vaping either. I think we have to realize that we have people living on a spectrum, right? And we're all trying to find the resources to help us cope. And so I think the big takeaway is lessening the availability is one of the things that can help us prevent more people getting access. And also having trusted adults, whether that's family connection that we're talking about with separating the device use and having that family interaction, but also at school and in the community, having that access to family member or community members, trusted adults who can get you to support.
So this is for the full panel. What advice would you give parents who feel overwhelmed by the pace of change with technology and social media?
I hear you, I feel you. It is changing rapidly. And so I think it is a challenging time, I think, to be a parent right now and trying to make decisions about technologies because these technologies are changing so fast. And a lot of the adults in here, myself included, have a hard time even keeping up with what the changes are that are happening. But I think that should, at least for me, lead us to a more a posture of resistance and slowing down. And I think the other thing too is, if you feel like you made some decisions already that you might regret, it is okay to change your mind as a parent. Your kids will not like it, but I do think it's real important, because all of you know as parents, there is no, we were talking about this before, there is no manual for parenting where you turn to page 267 and you just follow what it says A, B, and C. You're doing the best you can. Sometimes the best you can is you make mistakes and you're like, I wish I had not done that. You can't change your mind. It will not be fun. It will cause some friction. But I do think being honest with your kids when you do make mistakes and you make a change, if communicated well, can be an incredible learning opportunity for the whole family. I think that's probably the best I've got there.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any good advice because Jared's slide scared me. I mean, there's a ton of things that I don't know about, but I think it's about having that relationship and being intentional. As a parent, we also are getting bombarded with information. So, if there's one thing that I'm taking away from all of this, it's, gosh, I gotta make sure I'm setting a good example and that I am also not living in a distracted place all the time, because I feel like it's really easy right now with work, is you can carry your phone around with you and always feel like you gotta work and respond. And you also can feel the same thing about the news, right? Like, you've got the latest, like Taylor Swift is engaged, evidently, right? So
Is that a thing? Is it real?
Right? So that's the thing where I'm thinking, okay, but is that the most important thing for me to focus on? Probably not. So I've had to tell myself, I'm wearing my Fitbit because it helps track my sleep, but I have to turn it to sleep mode during the day, because if I don't, it's buzzing all the time, or I'm in these friend groups and my friends are all chatting and it's distracting. So I think, as a parent, what I'm trying to do is learn and also set some boundaries for myself so I can set a good example.
I think one of the things I always used to tell Solomon, I always love you, I don't always have to like you. Being a parent's tough. Your kid's not gonna always like everything you do. As a step parent, it's a whole other realm. His dad and I had different points of view on technology. I worked from home during the pandemic when he was in his bedroom doing his schoolwork, playing Fortnite. Oh, we're on a break. Every time I walk past this room, we're on a break. You said earlier, I bought it, I own it. Take it away from your kids. Make them earn it back. Set new rules. My son's 35. Things are very different than Solomon, who was 15. Technology is a different world. I'm grateful that my kids didn't have all that technology that we had to learn with Solomon. You've got to change your rules to what's going on today. Just because you did it for your 18-year-old 10 years ago, what you're doing for your 18-year-old now is a different world. We're here to protect our kids at all costs. Otherwise, you're going to be where I am today.
I think they covered it.
Perfect, Eric. So we have time for a couple more questions. This one is specifically for Dr. Sinclair about the research, and what does the research say about how long it takes to rewire the teen brain from being in such a deficit from phone use? Is there any research out there?
So yeah, I think I referenced that book, Dopamine Nation. If you want to read a little bit more, I really encourage you to do that, because that book was not written towards doctors, it was just written for the general public. But in general, for almost everything that involves dopamine, it's a 30-day thing. To like get yourself off of the thing and develop new habits to get yourself on something else. And so that's where, it doesn't matter what it is, that's typically a pretty good rule of thumb. So as you're thinking about making changes during those 30 days, is probably not going to feel great. Or not going to feel great for your kids. But I do think that you will find, I found this for myself, okay? I mentioned back in January of 2022, I ended up having to do a hard break for myself, and it was not an easy hard break, but a month in, my brain felt completely different. All of the mental fogginess and focus attention I had just went away, and it's just changed my perception on what is possible for kids to say, well, this is just sort of where we are. I would not say this is just where we are. Change is possible. It's not easy, but it's possible, and part of it is stopping one thing and starting something new. So anytime you start something, you gotta pick up something healthier. But this something healthier can be fun stuff. Sports, family, hanging out with your friends, being outside and being outdoors. Figuring out new habits to replace the digital habits is really, really important. And I bet most people, once they get through that 30-day period, will find a lot of happiness and satisfaction on the other side.
So I have two, and this is for anybody to answer, actually one for anybody to answer, and then Charlene, I'd like you to share again Solly's Law so that they have that fresh in their mind when they leave. And then we're going to do the drawing for door prizes, so make sure you wait. But give one simple, practical step a parent can take this week in order to support their child's mental health and well-being, or to protect them online.
I think if you had to start with one place, is just get devices out of the bedroom. Just make one simple thing, it's just that. No device in the bedroom, and you've gone a long way to a good, healthier start.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer this by asking you all, how many of you, we're all, many of us are parents, but we're all children, right? How many of you realized how smart your parents were when you got a little bit older? Yeah. So I think that part of it is realizing that, there's things that we can do that maybe it's just having a conversation. And I think that sometimes as parents, we think we're not cool and the kids aren't the cool is probably not even the right word now. But we're not the ones that's gonna connect with them, so we might as well just not even worry about saying it, but I think that's wrong. I think we should make sure we remember that it's our job to help guide them, and I think having that real honest conversation and saying, hey, I'm concerned about this, or let's have a conversation about this, to keep that open dialogue with your kids is important, because there is some evidence, at least in my life as a parent, where my daughter came back later, she's like, Mom, all those rules that I hated, you know, you were actually kind of smart. And I thought, you know, I said the same thing to my mama. So don't underestimate the power you have as a parent, too.
Go back to having family dinners. I think between football and traveling sports and school, and people don't sit down and eat dinner as a family anymore. One of the hardest things when we blended our family, my children never had a television on when we ate. Al and Solomon and AJ always had a television on when they ate. It took a long time to come to this rule that if Charlie cooked, there was no TV on. If you were gonna eat what I cooked, you were gonna sit at the table, you weren't taking it to your bedroom. You were gonna sit as a family. My daughter just moved back to Wilmington. She was in Cullowhee at Western and then went all the way to Reno, Nevada for grad school. Like, let's torture your mom and go 3,000 miles away. The first thing she said when she got home was, Mom, can we have family dinner every week? Do you know how happy it makes me to have her and her boyfriend and the dog come over every week for family dinner, even when I don't have time to cook or I don't feel like cooking? I don't take them out. We sit at home and we cook and we eat and we talk. The best conversation you're gonna have with your kids is when you're feeding them the food they like.
That's a fact. You know, like I mentioned earlier, the internet is still the Wild West. It was worse back a few years ago, but it's still terrible. And, you know, just like they all mentioned, have those conversations because, you know, the blind leading the blind is much better than the nobody leading them. You know, I would have much rather had, you know, my parents to be able to guide me through those, you know, that whole boom of social media, but did not because, again, we were all uneducated in it. So just try to educate yourselves. It's super overwhelming. It's quite literally impossible to learn everything, but just do your best and, again, just have those conversations.
And Charlene, can you please share with us again Sully's Law that you're trying to get passed so desperately here in North Carolina?
So right now, House Bill 340, Senate Bill 318 is sitting in the Rules Committee. There's this saying that a good rule, a good law goes to the Rules Committee to die. My son already died. I don't want anyone else's son to die because his law is sitting in the Rules Committee. Call your legislatures, call your senators. Go to North Carolina Alliance for Health and read up on Sully's Law. Reach out to Jen, she's got the information. Let us help you spread the word. If you belong to a church group, if you belong to a parents organization, start talking about T21. Talk about how we're gonna save kids' lives so nobody else feels like how my family feels.
Thank you all. Please give our panelists a round of applause. So we have some door prizes. So if you signed up, you can stay. We have 5 gift cards and 5 books. And so this is the book, The Anxious Generation. It's an easy read, but we're going to draw it out. We're going to have our panelists draw them. It'll be a little quicker. So 01330995. Yay, there we go. And this is for a gift certificate to Zillions. Next number, and this is for the book, The Anxious Generation, 01330973. Okay? is for a Lowe's gift card. Last 4 digits are 1015. Going once. All right. Anybody here? No? All right, let's draw another one. Last 4 digits are 0965. Lowe's gift card. There you go. All right, this is for the book. Last 4 digits, 1007. There you go. This one is for another book, 1020. All right, this one is for a gift card, 1032. 1032. No? All right, here's another one, 1027.
That's you. Yay!
There you go. All right, this is for a book, 0963. 0963. Yay. All right, 2 more. 2 more. So this one is for a Lowe's gift card, 0990. Oh, yay, there we go. And so for the last book, 0964. 0964? Going once. Oh, you got it, yay. Guys, thank you again for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions, we'll be posting these online, and you can reach out to us anytime. Have a great evening.